Hello everyone, welcome back. Okay, golly gosh, I got a lot of messages and a lot of feedback on the last video from people telling me various things that I missed in the game. Some of them were things that I knew about, some of them were things that I didn't know about. So let me go over them because I was surprised by the amount of messages telling me about stuff that I could have done but didn't. So first of all, this whole thing here in the escape pod, where I was kind of flailing around trying to figure out how you're supposed to know what the safety or the survival kit is here. So I tried things like look in pod, doesn't work. I tried search pod. Actually, you just say look pod. And, well, this isn't helpful, but after this, then it says a survival kit has broken loose from someplace. So I could have just typed look pod, or I think examine pod. Yeah, also works. So I just didn't type what I needed to type. That was my mistake. Sorry. So yeah. One thing which somebody did point out. Let me load a game and try to find a good place to do this. Trying to think, where can I... Okay, this should be fine. Yeah, so if we push the right button here, get that suit. Now we can... Oh, I need to push the button to open the airlock. There we go. So I realized after my last video and after some of the messages that I got that I've been neglecting the deaths in this game. I mean, a big part of playing any Sierra adventure, as everybody knows, is showing the different ways to die. Well, that's one way to do it. Congratulations, Roger Wilco. You have found your way off the Arcata and escaped obvious danger. Unfortunately, you will never be seen or heard from again as you float gracefully through the heavens for eternity. Well, that was the end of that. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you can probably fall down that. Let's try that too. Let's go ahead and take a moment to try that and just fall down that hole there where the escape pod comes up through, because I'm pretty sure that that's probably going to kill us as well. Yeah, I've been neglecting the deaths. I mean, a lot of people back in the day complained about how easily you can die in Sierra Adventures, but those of us who were fans of Sierra know that's a big part of the fun. Like, half of the fun of these games is just finding all the different ways to die. It's not as much fun if you know you can't die. There are some cheap deaths. Like, sometimes there are some deaths which are really cheap, and it's like, yeah, that was kind of like, that was a little silly, but that was a pretty good sound effect. I mean, for a game that has a relative lack of really good sound effects, that was actually one of the best sound effects I've heard from this game yet. Well, Roger Wilco, that was a smooth half-gainer into the elevator shaft. Did you decide that you would think more clearly with your brains reorganized? Actually, he probably does. Probably will. So yeah, if I'm missing some deaths that you folks noticed, let me know. I mean, I am trying to play the game at a reasonable speed and not get too caught up on things, but, you know, it's nice to... catch deaths, because again, that is a big part of the game. So let's see, at this point I think I already killed the spider. Yeah, I already killed the spider at this point. Okay, let me load back to the point. Where's the point where yeah, this is where the spider had just shown up. So let's see, can I get to the right without the spider? So a lot of people, I literally lost count of how many people said this. A lot of people, I was surprised by how many people said this, that I should deal with the spider and with Orat by leading them to each other, or, well, by leading the spider to Orat, because the spider is following us. So instead of doing that whole thing with the rock, why not just walk into Orat's cave here, have the spider follow you, and do a little maneuvering so that the spider walks into Orat instead of into us. Well, the reason is this, because Orat's not in his cave, and he does not appear in his cave until you destroy the spider, or until something else happens, which happens later. We'll have to, I mean, later on we'll be able to come back here, possibly, and if we hadn't already destroyed the spider and Orat by then we would be able to lead the spider in here and it would kill Orat, but that's not something you can do right away. right when you get here and land on this planet, ORAT will not show up here until you have already destroyed the spider droid. So that's why I did the thing with the rock. Since so many people wanted to see that, I'll try to do it later. I'll try to show it later, but we can't do it now. We have to do something else first. So we'll try to come back to that later. But just one thing. A lot of people also said, several people said that you get more points for doing this. Several people said you get more points for leading the spider to ORAT and having the spider blow up ORAT. To people who think that, can you please check that? Because I'm pretty sure that's not true. You get 10 points if the spider blows up ORAT, which admittedly is more than the 5 points you get for killing ORAT with the water, as we saw in the previous video, but you also get 5 points for blowing up the spider with the rock. So basically, if you do what I did, you get 5 points for pushing the rock onto the spider, and you get 5 points for throwing the water to ORAT and killing ORAT that way. So 5 plus 5 is obviously 10. And you get the same 10 points if you lead the spider to ORAT. So I don't think that there's a point advantage. Maybe it looks like you get more points because people see that you get 10 points when when the spider blows up ORAT. That's true. But then you don't get the 5 points for pushing the rock onto the spider. So it's exactly the same number of points. So I thought, let's just do it like this, because otherwise we'd have to come back here to show the other way of doing things. But so many people wanted to see that, so I will try to show that later. But again, can't do it now. Somebody mentioned this I thought was really interesting. And by the way, the spider can kill me back there. I'm actually just kind of curious to see how long it takes, because sometimes the spider's pathfinding isn't that great. Sometimes it takes a long time for it to find me, to make its way to me, because the game's pathfinding is a little bit lacking in some regards. But it has happened. Like, I tried this before, and it did eventually get to me. It just takes a while sometimes. But I thought this was kind of interesting. Somebody mentioned that they got the hint book with the game when they bought the game. So for those who don't know, I think many or most of you probably know, but just in case you don't, these old Sierra adventures, there we go, it finally caught me. These old Sierra adventures, they usually had a hint book available for them, which you had to buy separately. And the hint books, if I remember right, they usually cost something like $10 or $9.99 or whatever. So, you'd buy the game, and if you got stuck on the game, if you needed a hint, you could call Sierra's hint line, which is a 1-900 number, which charged by the minute. 1-900 numbers are classically, they're like phone sex lines where you pay something like $3 a minute, but you can also have them for other pay-by-the-minute call services, and in this case, it was for adventure game hints. Or you could go to your local software shop, and they would typically sell hint books for Sierra Adventures, which, again, you could buy at $10 each. There is a widespread notion, and people may debate about this, but there's a widespread notion that Sierra deliberately put really obtuse puzzles into their games to force people to buy hint books, because basically people would be forced to spend an extra $10 on a hint book to finish the game. I made a video not too long ago with a quote from an interview with Ken Williams, where Ken Williams, president of Sierra, said he actually directly responded to this rumor and said, no, I don't think that was the reason. The reason why we put such difficult puzzles in is just because people finished the games too quickly. People would complain and say, well, I finished your game in like a couple of days, and that's it. The $50 I spent, because, these games, this was a AAA game back then. These were, it doesn't seem like much today, but these were the equivalent of AAA games back in the day. They would cost $50 or $60 each. So if you spend like $50 on a game, you probably want it to last you a while, and people would, finish the games in like, a couple of days or even hours maybe, and then they say, well, it wasn't worth the $50 that I paid for it. So Sierra put these puzzles in to kind of artificially extend the length of the gameplay, when most of the gameplay length was then just getting, breaking your head on really obtuse puzzles. But so Ken claims that wasn't the reason. But anyway, so the reason I mention all this is because somebody commented on the previous video saying they got the hint book with the game, not that they bought it separately, but that the hint book came with the game. That is not usual as far as I know. As far as I know, I have never seen that. I'm not saying that, obviously I'm not implying that the person is wrong or anything. I mean, if they say, if that happened to them, then it must have happened. Maybe the store they bought it at was selling some kind of bundle. I don't know. Well, they mentioned it was I think they said it was a Tandy computer, and, Radio Shack, where you'd usually go to buy a Tandy, they had like their own special sort of merchandise packaging deal stuff happening. So maybe at Radio Shack, that maybe some of these games were sold at Radio Shack with the hint books included. Possible. I don't know. I've never heard of that, but it's certainly possible. But yeah, generally the hint books were sold separately. Anyway, speaking of hint books, one thing that I actually went looking up the hint book for this game, and oh, that's the wrong rock. I restored a game called Rock, but I actually wanted to come back here. I actually looked up the hint book for this because I was trying to figure out how you're supposed to figure this stuff out. Like, how are you supposed to know some of these things? And the hint, like the way that the Sierra's hint books worked is they usually started off with a very subtle hint, like not just giving you the answer, but sort of giving you a nudge in the right direction. And then if that wasn't enough for you, if that didn't help you solve the puzzle, then you could go to the next hint, and that the next hint would be a little bit more explicit, a little bit more leading to the conclusion. But for this puzzle here, where you have to put the rock on this geyser to make the door open, the hint book just flat out says at the end, "Don't ask me how it works." So, like, even the hint book seems to be acknowledging that this makes absolutely no logical sense. You put a rock on the geyser. How are you supposed to know to put a rock on the geyser? As far as I know, there's no clue. I mean, I guess you could figure it out just by trial and error. I mean, a lot of people said this in the previous videos. Well, a lot of people just said, you know, I got through this game just by totally trying random crazy things. You know, if you just try enough goofy, silly, random things, eventually something works. And I mean, yeah, it's like the infinite monkey theorem. If you have an infinite number of monkeys typing on an infinite number of typewriters, then eventually they'll write everything from Shakespeare to Charles Barkley or whatever. Not Charles Barkley. What's the Charles Barkley is a new basketball player. Not Charles Barkley. Who's the Oh, I'm getting old. I've always been bad with names, and I'm getting worse now because I'm getting older. What was the gentleman's name? The author who Bukowski, Charles Bukowski, who was well, he's well regarded, but I have always considered him fairly lowbrow. So everything from Shakespeare to Charles Bukowski. If you have an infinite number of monkeys typing on an infinite number of typewriters, eventually they'll write everything, from War and Peace to, you know, a comic book. So yeah, I guess you could get through this game just by trying everything, just trying everything you can think of until something works, which apparently is how a lot of people did it. So yeah. Okay. So, I think that's most of what people mentioned, but there are a couple of other deaths. Hold on, coming back to the deaths, there are a couple of deaths which people mentioned, which I should, let's see, what is this? Oh, yeah, it's, okay, this will work. A couple of people mentioned, and I did notice this actually, where is it? I think it's up here. Come on. Yeah, this here. Let me just pause for a second. I saw this and I thought it was maybe just like a rocky, like a little piece of the rock that juts out. It looked like maybe it was something, but I didn't really think much of it because I know it's not like a solution to any puzzle, and so I just kind of saw it and ignored it, didn't comment on it. I thought it was just like a piece of the rock that maybe sticks out a bit, and so it's drawn differently. But no, it's actually a hole. And if we look in the hole, well, okay, not if that happens. Okay. Come back here because I know we had already blown up the spider here, so let's try this again. I mean, there's a lot of stuff which I guess I don't do in these videos because even though I want to try and capture as much as I can on the one side, I realize that it does kind of break up the flow. It kind of makes it a little bit less fun if I'm always stopping to look at kind of inconsequential things. So there's always kind of a balance between trying to show everything the game has to offer and trying to... What? You learn nothing new through this act. Well, it's not to learn something. I thought that if you look in the hole, just type look hole. Oh, look hole, not look in hole. There we go. Burp. And that happens. Whatever's in that hole just enjoyed lunch on you. This should teach you to be cautious when entering alien holes. Yeah, I mean, it always is good to be cautious when you're going into a hole because you don't know what... Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's something. That was a thing. And, oh yeah, this one really kind of... This one surprised me. So somebody said that if you just stand here for a few seconds, then a UFO comes flying down and it will like beam you up or something. You hear a strange roar like something traveling through the atmosphere at a very high rate of speed. We don't even get a sound effect for that. Come on. You've been driven into the ground like a flesh python. I think it's supposed to be flesh piston somehow. My first thought is that's a typo for piston, but maybe this is some pit. Is that a word? I don't think so. I'm gonna guess that's supposed to be piston, but let me just check that's not a word that I don't know. Oh. A piton, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is like a spike or something that you drive into rock for mountain climbers. That's kind of like what's the other? Isn't that a crampon? Like, oh, wait, no, crampon is something that you have on your shoes. Okay, sorry, I'm not a mountain climber, so I don't know the terminology. Okay, so that's, okay, so a python is something that you drive into rock, like as when you're mountain climbing. Okay, didn't know that. So yeah, somebody said that a UFO lands on you, but it's not a UFO. It's, I guess, I mean, it's a rock. It's like a meteor or a meteorite, I guess. I don't know if I've ever seen that. I don't think I've ever stood around here long enough to observe that happening, so I don't think I knew that I was in the game. So yeah, thanks to everyone who posted all those comments. I mean, I'm realizing now, going through this game and, you know, seeing all the feedback and the comments you folks have left, I'm realizing how little I actually knew about this game. You know, it's funny because I grew up with these games, and I thought that I knew this game pretty well. You know, it seems to me that I am the expert, Mark. But I'm realizing now that I really don't know much about this game, especially about this game. I know, I think, more about the rest of the Space Quest, but this original version of the first Space Quest game, I don't know a lot about because, again, as I've said many times before, I never finished it when I was a kid. I barely got past the first couple of rooms because I couldn't figure out to search the dead body, so I never got any farther than that. So I'm realizing now I don't know a lot about this game. So thanks for your comments. I hope that it's not too annoying that I go back and do this stuff after the fact based on feedback that I get from people. I mean, like I said, on the one hand, you know, you do want to keep the flow going. I don't want to keep interrupting things for asides and stuff like that. But on the other hand, you know, I mean, you know, we want to capture all the interesting, cool stuff that there is to see. I don't want to miss anything interesting in the game. So, all right, so let's see. Oh, I did this last time. Just try to walk through it and you turn into... rest in pieces. Okay, so what do we do? This one is not too hard. In my opinion, this is not a very difficult puzzle. This is actually a puzzle that makes sense. You have lasers. What do you do with lasers? Well, lasers are light, so having something very reflective probably is a hint that maybe that's something to do with okay, so let's see. If we put glass in laser, does that work? Can be done from here. Okay, I guess that means I need to get closer. You have quite cleverly turned the beam upon itself, throwing it into inoperability. All right. That's that. Let's move on. And here we have... Now, this is fairly... Let me save here. Drips. I need to be careful because I'm running out of space. You see, I just had 25 kilobytes of space on this disk. I'm now down to 21K. So every save game that I make takes up 4K of space. I may need to try to delete some of these old games. The problem with these old computers is they didn't have an easy way to delete files sometimes. Like, I don't know if a good way to delete files from a floppy disk, from an Apple IIgs floppy disk, without booting into like the Finder or something, which for that you need in a separate disk, which I mean, which is possible to do. It's not something you can do from within the game or even from like a command prompt or anything like that. You have to basically boot into a GUI or run some other kind of disk management program. I don't know if a good way to do. I don't think there's a way to do that from here. Like I can't just click on these and delete them. Yeah, it's not okay. Anyway. This is fairly obvious. I mean, even if you've never seen this scene, you can probably guess those drops are significant. Let's see what happens if we get hit by... There we go. You are unpleasantly surprised by a drop of searing acid which bores its way to your feet. All right. So yeah, can't just do that. You need to be a little bit careful. This is actually not that difficult to do, but I mean, you do need to take a bit of basic precaution there so you don't get caught by one of the drops falling down, because yeah, that's not water, it's acid. It's obviously very strong acid. Okay, this scene. A massive holographic image appears before you. You sense that you're the only life form in the area. So, okay, this is where that gadget that we have in our inventory. Remember in the same place where we got this spacesuit that it's not even really a spacesuit, but this suit that we're wearing. Remember that this suit was on the right-hand side storage closet, and in the left-hand side there was that gadget that we picked up. That gadget is a translator, and it's because we have that we can understand what this guy is saying. If we had not taken the gadget, or if we had not turned it on, then he would just say some gibberish. I don't really feel the need to show that because you see the exact same scene. Like you see this guy's face in front of you. It's exactly the same setup. It's just instead of him speaking English here, it would just be like gibberish text. So I don't really feel the need to show that because you can, the content's not any different. Yeah, if you had forgotten to turn on the gadget, you can just turn it back on and try again. If you didn't take it with you, then I think you pretty much don't have a way to finish the game, and then I think you probably need to restore back to, to where you could take the gadget, which admittedly is a dead man walking situation, but I don't think it's too sinister. I don't feel like Sierra is being too underhanded with that one because it's very obvious. Like it's right there. Again, people will complain about these dead man walking situations where you can get yourself permanently stuck, but if there's a closet on one side where you can get the suit, it should be pretty obvious that you should open the other one to get whatever's in there. So, things like that. Yeah, it's a dead end, but I don't feel like that's too mean, to be honest. Anyway, so you have found your way to my hallowed chamber. Fortunately, there is much more to you than meets the eye. Hey, what's that supposed to mean, buddy? You're not as dumb as you look. I have been monitoring your travels on our planet. It appears that you are up the proverbial estuary without a means of locomotion. Yes, that is true. You are obviously in need of transportation. I wonder how they made that voice sample. It almost sounds like somebody is saying something. It has come to my attention that you have met Orat. If you have proof of Orat's demise, drop it for my inspection. All right. What do they call? Okay, it's just called Orat part. All right. Drop Orat part. You drop the Orat part to the ground. The vision is silent. You are startled by a rumbling, and suddenly an oddly shaped door comes into view. It opens slowly. You hear a voice, different this time, beckoning you to step forward. All right. Can I get the... Oh, I can't type anything here. I can move around, but I can't type. All right. Wow. Wow, that sound is annoying. Please don't be alarmed. We intend no harm. We are a peaceful race. We are cautious, however. Others don't share our way of life. Welcome to Corona. I'm noticing this guy doesn't have quotation marks. I think that hologram that we just saw, he did have quotation marks around his text, didn't he? I thought he did, but now I notice this guy's talking without quotation marks, which seems to imply to me, I don't know if that's the intent here, but it kind of gives me the feeling that he's speaking through telepathy. I might be wrong. It's just the feeling I get from the fact that they didn't put quotation marks around this guy's text. I say guy, I mean, it could be, I don't know this person's gender or if they even have a gender. I mean, who knows? You're standing in the power generation facility of our underground settlement. All power here is produced by steam. That is unimportant to you, however. We have promised you transportation. It is a skimmer. That's this thing here that's just sliding into the room. It hovers approximately a half meter above the traveling surface. This is very important because of Grell. Grell is, yeah, that thing that keeps popping up and eating us when we go outside the bounds of where we were. Grell and his like dwell in caves below the sand. If you stand on the surface too long, you chance becoming a rare moist meal for him. The skimmer is programmed to take you to the settlement on the other side of Corona called Yulin's Flats. You can make further travel arrangements there. And for those who don't know, Yulin's Flats, which is the name of the small city that we're just about to travel to, is a pun on flatulence. I'm sorry that this is all we can offer. I hope your trip is a safe one. Board the skimmer when you're ready to depart. Good luck, strange one. You know what? Huh? That's weird. I can't seem to... I have never experienced that before. If I try to turn off the game's audio, it doesn't actually turn off the audio. It just changes the sound that those pistons make, but it doesn't turn them off entirely. I've never experienced this in a Sierra game before. Usually they're pretty good about turning off the audio if you turn off the audio. Well, that sound, in my opinion, is really annoying, so I'm going to go ahead and just going to turn that down. Hope that's okay with you folks. This place is most interesting indeed, a mixture of both old and new technologies. On one side of the chamber is a primitive steam generator. Its pistons, pounding rhythmically, turn steam into useful energy. On the other side is what appears to be a computer console. Okay, I guess that would be this thing here. Can we look at these creatures that are walking around? Look at the beings. A few of the Coronians above you carry out their various tasks. Can we talk to the beings? The beings are busy working and have no time to chat. All right. Okay, so this is a computer here, right? Are you sure you want to look at it? Yes, I'm sure. Okay, look at the screen. The screen is dark. The console consists of a monitor and a cartridge slot. There are also some readouts which indicate the status of some of the mechanisms in here. So this is an output-only sort of console. So there's no keyboard or anything. You can't input or type anything here. But there is a cartridge slot, and we happen to have a cartridge. Remember this Astral Body cartridge we got from the Arcada? Let's go ahead and put cartridge into slot. The cartridge snaps neatly into the slot and the screen comes active. Oh, alive, sorry. Whoever shall read this, my name is Dr. Vohal. I'm a scientist with the Star Generator project aboard the Star Lab Arcada. We have just successfully completed development and testing of the Star Generator. During this time, I have come to believe that our progress has been monitored by others. I fear that the Sarians may have learned of our mission. If my fears prove true, the Star Generator and the people of our universe are in serious jeopardy. The Star Generator is a miraculous device. Used as intended, it will help preserve life for eons to come. Used as a device for evil, it would cause the destruction of millions of lives and enslave all who oppose the Sarians. Ah, that classic dichotomy between technology for good and technology for evil. It's kind of like nuclear energy. On the one hand, it's a source of clean, abundant power. On the other hand, it's a source of abundant, destructive power. Okay. Encoded within this cartridge are all plans and specifications for the construction of the Star Generator. Should any disaster befall the Star Generator project, scientists would be able to create a duplicate of the Star Generator with this information. Please guard this information with your life. Oh, I inserted the word information. Please guard this with your life. Return it to the Xenon ruling body as quickly as is possible. Important note, the Star Generator is capable of self-destruction. This was introduced to the system as a precaution. To activate it, one must enter the code 6858. And yes, this is something you'll want to write down if you're actually playing the game. This is something you'll want to note because you will need this code. A 5-minute timer will begin to count down. Beware, anyone within 5 kilometers of the Star Generator will be in danger once the timer has been initiated. Please be careful and good luck. Sorry, I know I read that kind of quickly, but I mean, you folks can read, so I don't feel the need to very deftly intone the text there. And very important, this is something that can get you if you're careless. Make sure to get the cartridge, because the cartridge stays in the slot. And if you don't think to pull the cartridge back out, you will leave it here, and that will impact the ending of the game. So you wisely retrieve the cartridge from its slot. Do not forget to do that. And you get 5 points for it anyway. So, all right, so let's go ahead and save here. So we're at the skimmer. Oh, I'm on disk 2 now. Oh, okay. Actually, on disk 2 we have 382K of space. Okay, that's plenty enough space. This copy of the game that I got came with somebody else's saves called AL234. I mean, that's not me. That's somebody else. But yeah. In any case, okay, we have plenty of space on disk 2 if I run out of space on disk 1, so that's fine. All right. So save the game as Skimmer. And that's it. Next time we'll ride on the skimmer to Ulan's Flats, and we'll see what we can find there. So I mentioned also, let me just turn off that incessant clanking for a second. So I mentioned there's something you have to do before you can get the spider to kill Orat, and this was that you have to meet with the hologram. So the hologram wants you to give him evidence that you've killed Orat, and that is the Orat part that we got, obviously. If we had not killed Orat when we met that guy, then he would send us. Again, I say he. I mean, it struck me as masculine. It could be a female. It could be non-gendered. So please forgive me for saying he. Or it. It would have sent us back to the surface and said, come back when you've killed Orat. And then, after you've done that, then the spider droid will follow you into Orat's cave, and then you can use the spider droid to kill Orat. So I'll try to do that next time, but we couldn't do that until we've been here. Until we'd been here and seen that hologram talk about Orat. So that should be possible next time. So I'll try to set that up for the next video, but that's all for this video. So until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Take care, and I'll talk to you later. Ta-ta!